If you wish to be a success in the world, promise everything, deliver nothing. Those words were spoken by the one and only Napoleon Bonaparte. If you know me, then you know I love my history. I've made videos in recent years going more into the historical side of certain movies, and needless to say, I have a fondness of studying history. Not only is it important to help understand how we, as a people, got to where we are today, but it can also help us learn from the past and our past mistakes. That's actually another quote from Napoleon. History is a set of lies agreed upon. Which is true. That's why it's always important to try and keep up with the facts. History is always changing based on what we learn, but we must also be weary of the world of film when it comes to history. Because then you got people believing that Pocahontas was actually 16 years old and actually did fall in love with John Smith. Or you got people actually believing that Balto was indeed part wolf and not actually a purebred husky. But that's not to say it can't be entertaining. I mean, remember that movie where Lincoln was a vampire slayer? Or that video game where JFK, Richard Nixon, Robert McNamara, and Fidel Castro fought zombies? Yeah, I think they can get away with it. Again, it's really a case-by-case scenario when it comes down to it. Some movies and video games just want to have fun with their historical characters, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what I was expecting with Ridley Scott's Napoleon. Man, did those trailers just suck you in, man.
Your Majesty, we are discovered. Good.
It's a trap!
I'm the first to admit when I make a mistake. I simply never do.
The music, the editing, man, I haven't been this hyped for a movie just from its trailer since like Sonic 2. I'm dead serious. It was that fucking good. I was really hyped for this movie, man. It looked great. I love the Napoleonic era in history. It has a legendary director. It seemed like a complete win-win to me. But Russia seemed like a win-win too, didn't it? The new Napoleon movie already got shit wrong in the marketing, yet it still looks pretty good.
That one didn't age quite so well.
Yeah, Napoleon was a major disappointment to me. Not just from a historical perspective, but also from a filmmaking perspective. This movie frustrates me to no end. And here's the thing, I can make concessions when it comes to stuff like this, okay? I don't have to see every little detail when it comes to a famous battle, or hear 30-something quotes from Napoleon that he actually said. One or two would have been fine. I can accept that when it comes to Napoleon, I'm probably not gonna get the full Napoleon experience from a movie. No way. Hell, even when the 4-hour director's cut comes out later down the line, I honestly still doubt that would give me the full experience. And this movie has made that perfectly clear. I won't go too much into the historical elements as we would be here forever, and it definitely deserves a full video later down the line. But damn, I really wasn't expecting them to skim over this much. The campaign in Italy, the Peninsular War, the Battle of Eylau and Aspern, the Battle of Leipzig, Friedland, none of this stuff is even mentioned. Not once in the script anywhere. We just have these abrupt jump cuts to these random parts of Napoleon's career. Like this one instance after the Battle of Austerlitz where he meets up with Emperor Francis II, and Francis tells him, "Oh, Tsar Nicholas II won't be here because he's being a bit of a bitch right now." But then, 5 minutes later, we just cut to Napoleon and Nicholas meeting. Like, wait, what? Did we miss something? It feels like we missed something. Fun fact, we missed what was essentially Napoleon's first major defeat since becoming emperor. Hey, how about the fall of the Holy Roman Empire? That was a pretty big fucking deal at the time, right? Nah, just a footnote compared to the epic love story that was Napoleon and Josephine. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. This really feels like it should have been a TV series rather than a movie. Like I said, even a 4-hour director's cut, I fear won't be enough to tell the full tale without leaving at least some people feeling jaded. And that's pretty much this movie's biggest flaw. It has no focus, the pacing is shit, and it's just plain not interesting. How do you make Napoleon, of all people, not interesting? The guy who single-handedly took over all of Europe within the span of a couple of years. Which brings me into the filmmaking element of this movie. Yeah, it still sucks. I mean, it's well shot, the cinematography is great, the Battle of Waterloo at the end was pretty well done. Like, it's a pretty movie, but it suffers so badly from the writing and the acting. Well, okay, Vanessa Kirby is actually pretty as good as Josephine, she can stay, but man, Brother Bear is just not a good fit here. He sounds so disinterested most of the time, and he doesn't seem to have a clear character. In some scenes, he's supposed to be this proud, mysterious figure with an epic backstory. And in other scenes, he's like a fucking lunatic. There's no consistency with Napoleon, and as such, there's no consistency with his relationship with Josephine, which is where the film puts most of its focus on. Some scenes, he's like a dog that's like bowing down to his master, and other times, he's an abusive brute. I'm like, what the fuck is he supposed to be? And I'm just gonna say this, and this is just a personal beef with me. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking to make a Napoleon movie about his drama with his wife. It actually boggles my mind, as it's honestly one of the least interesting parts of his life. So, Napoleon and Josephine's relationship was one of the more promiscuous ones in real life. Neither were really faithful to each other. They married solely for political reasons, which the movie does acknowledge. But, like, when it comes to Napoleon, I think I'd rather have the cool, epic war stuff over his home life. If I had a choice between a Godzilla movie and Keeping Up with the Kardashians...
Yo, shout for season,
Now, I know that's a weak as hell comparison because who even likes the Kardashians, but you get my point, right? So the fact that this movie willingly chooses to focus on such a meandering, sluggish, dull as fuck romance over the cool war stuff is absolutely insane to me. What were they thinking? Oh, and it doesn't help the fact that there were just so many pointless scenes that go nowhere. There are just so many random scenes of Napoleon and Josephine just chilling in their house doing nothing or socializing or having awkward as hell sex scenes. Yeah, there's like 4 or 5 awkward sex scenes in this movie, and frankly, they make me envy 50 Shades of Grey. Which brings me to the god-awful editing in this film. The movie just keeps cutting at random intervals all the time. Some scenes won't even last a full minute. It'll just be Napoleon sitting somewhere, somebody will walk in and say, "Hey Napoleon, something, 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 we win." And then it'll cut to the next scene. Like, what was even the point of that? There's even this hard cut to Napoleon butt-fucking Josephine, and I bet that line just made you laugh right now because of how abrupt it was, right? Ha! Well, you shouldn't be laughing because it was a very serious moment. This movie is just so confused about what it even wants to be. Like, it has these scenes that I think are trying to be funny. Like, I couldn't even tell half the time because the delivery was just so awkwardly delivered. There's a scene where he wants to fuck Josephine, and he's making this weird whimpering sound to let her know. Like, what? It actually reminded me of that scene from The Room where Tommy Wiseau was going, "Cheep, cheep, 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 cheep." I was just so confused. Like, is this movie trying to be a dramedy? Why? It's fucking Napoleon Bonaparte! This just makes the battle sequences, which should be the highlight of the film, feel not only underwhelming when they arrive, but they also have no meaning to them. These are some of the most significant battles in human history. The Napoleonic era isn't just some footnote in history. It was the largest series of wars in European history at the time. The world wouldn't see anything like it again for at least a century. And yet, because of the film's abysmal pacing and editing, the Battle of Borodino, the single bloodiest day in the Napoleonic era that saw the death of nearly 70,000 people on both sides, got 30 seconds of screen time.
Fuck you!
This movie leaves out so much context on why any of the characters are doing anything to the point where it just feels like drive-by history lessons. And yet, for a movie that's taking quite a lot of liberties in its storytelling, it feels like it also expects you, the audience, to already know the history just so it doesn't have to fill in the blanks. Oh, and Ridley Scott has the fucking gall to tell people who are upset about this to just get over it and get a life. But you cannot have your cake and eat it too, dude. How do you think this shit all started anyway? And yeah, I know Marie Antoinette didn't actually say that. It's a joke. I'm making a joke myself. See, that's paying homage to history right there. There's a scene where Napoleon talks about how Tsar Alexander I betrayed him, and now he's forced to invade Russia, but he never goes into detail on what that actually means. How exactly did he betray you? Well, I know it was because you and him became friends, but he secretly hated the Duchy of Warsaw being on his front doorstep. He joined your broken-ass continental system, realized that it was damaging Russia's economy, so he broke the continental system, and also you offered to marry his sister, only to backtrack and marry Marie Louise Austria. Oh, but God forbid the movie bring any of that up. Just a couple of lines of dialogue to add some form of context so it doesn't feel like you're just rushing to the battle sequences that you apparently didn't even want to focus on. The invasion of Russia was Napoleon's biggest mistake. It's where his entire legacy went to shit. 600,000 soldiers, the largest army in the world at the time, entered Russia in the summer of 1812, and less than 100,000 came home in the winter. And all of that stuff only got like 10 minutes of screen time, maybe even less. Like, at that point, why is it even called Napoleon when it doesn't even want to focus on Napoleon? We never identify any of his marshals. Marshal Ney, Bernadotte, the flamboyant Murat? How can you make a Napoleon movie without including the flamboyant Murat? The only major battles we get to see in the movie are the Siege of Toulon in the opening, the Battle of Austerlitz in the middle, and the Battle of Waterloo at the end. And even then, they're not that great, sadly. The opening is too damn dark to where you can't even make anything out. Waterloo is the only one that's actually pretty good. But at the same time, it still vastly oversimplifies stuff and expects you to just know how it already went down. Which, for a movie that doesn't even want to try and be accurate, it's kind of insulting when the movie does that to you. This movie is just so frustrating. If you ask me, the best way to handle this story is to do one of two things. One, shift the focus away from Josephine. Now, obviously, yes, she would need some focus, but that's the word, isn't it? Some. Only focus on her when she is relevant to the story, like when Napoleon's trying to have an heir or when they get the divorce. Secondly, make this a trilogy. Yeah, I know everyone's sick of seeing franchises and sequels all the time, but this is one instance where it would make perfect sense to do. 3 movies, all dedicated to telling the full story of Napoleon. The first one can start off with the Siege of Toulon and end with the Battle of Austerlitz, where he solidifies his status as ruler of Europe. The second movie can focus on his other conquests around Europe, such as the Peninsular War, which was basically his Vietnam, and the movie would end with him preparing to invade Russia, basically the beginning of the end. And of course, the third and final film would focus on his downfall, the invasion and retreat of Russia, his last stand in Paris, his exile, his return, the Battle of Waterloo, and eventually his second and final exile. Each movie could be about 2.5 hours or even longer, giving audiences about 7.5 to 8 hours of Napoleon. Doesn't that sound so much better? It's certainly better than some 4-hour director's cut, which still wouldn't be able to deliver the full experience. Or at the very least, this should have just been a TV show. Yeah, I know Steven Spielberg's making a Napoleon show, which apparently Stanley Kubrick wanted to make? Well, at least I can take some solace in knowing the fact that, with a little patience, I might just get the Napoleon experience I was hoping for from this movie. Give it a year's time, this movie will probably just be forgotten about. It does nothing to enhance the Napoleon story. It's slow, it's awkward, it's choppy, it's underdeveloped, underwhelming, just plain boring, and it just feels like an insult to Napoleon. He feels more like a hollow shell in this movie, not a complex human being that made ingenious battle decisions and committed horrible atrocities all across the map. To this day, people still debate on whether Napoleon was even a good person. Was he a champion of civil liberties and fought for the rights of his fellow men? Or was he a vicious tyrant who hypocritically just did whatever he wanted? See, that's the Napoleon I wanted to see. A guy whose never-ending ambition would lead Europe into its bloodiest conflict that it had ever seen. And why? Simply because he either wanted to or felt like he had to. Whatever. Napoleon is fucking interesting. And he's everything this movie is not. Sure, it's pretty in some moments, and Vanessa Kirby does her best with such a shitty script, but it's just nothing. Just an absolute waste of time and resources. Just like the invasion of Russia. In the words of Napoleon, with audacity, one can undertake anything, but not everything. True words not fit him more than Napoleon in this shit-ass movie. Also, they never even brought up my boy, Jimmy the Arsonist! You gotta bring up my boy! He single-handedly destroyed all of Moscow. Oh, and of course, they went and made a short joke about Napoleon when he was average height for the time! And they didn't even show Napoleon and Nicholas II kissing! What a fucking ripoff! But you wanna know what's not a ripoff? This video sponsor, Art Against Anxiety. Research shows that mentally engaging with films can facilitate long-term stress relief and provide for long-lasting mental well-being. So if you're tired of the constant battle against anxiety, depression, ADHD, and other mental health conditions, then the Art Against Anxiety Wellness Program is designed just for you. Facilitated by a behavioral health physician and other experts in mental health, the Art Against Anxiety program is designed to teach you how to use movies as tools for boosting your cognitive skills you need for overcoming your mental stress and achieving long-term mental well-being. So if you use my link in the description and my pinned comment, you'll receive a 30% discount for your first sign-up. Oh, but hurry quickly, this deal will only last until December 19th. you'll be supporting me and my channel, but more importantly, you might also be supporting yourself. So special thanks to Art Against Anxiety for sponsoring this video. Now go watch Oversimplified or something, really, Scott, you uneducated fuck!